What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Watch Dares TV. I am back with another review, and this one is of You, Season 4, Episode 1, Joe Takes a Holiday. If you like this video, like, comment, subscribe, and share the video for all things Netflix's You. I'll be doing a review of the entire season, even though the season's cut in half, so the next few episodes, and then part 2 coming out like next month. So anyway, let's go into this review. I'm excited the show is back. I really love the show. I like last season. So I was really curious about the show taking place in London. Yeah. So basically, Joe, aka now his name is Professor Jonathan Moore, is now in London. You know, he's sporting a beard now, and he's teaching, I believe, college classes at some type of school. He sets up really well in London, you know, wearing nice suits and all. I like the way how every season Joe sort of goes into a new type of setting. You know, last season, in season 3, you know, he was doing the whole father thing and stuff like that, being a dad. And, you know, the first 2 seasons, he was in the city and then he moved and stuff like that. So I like the way how they go for like almost a new story and a whole completely new setting within each episode, each season. I love the way they do that in the show. He's now snooping on a couple next door instead of usually snooping on some new woman or whatever like that. This time around, he's snooping on a couple, which is pretty interesting. Different way of reinventing the show. He even catches the neighbor, the woman next door. There's like a wife and husband, and she even catches her, having some alone time, you know, on a computer. So he even catches her doing, that stuff. Anyway, we find out that Joe has been spending months looking for Marion. We find out that, of course, at the end of last season, he flew all the way over to Paris just to stalk her, you know. So if that didn't sound insane enough, you know, he ends up actually doing that. Just all this just to look for this girl. We probably already knew that was going to end up being something really crazy anyway. I don't know what in his twisted mind thought that that would be normal for him to fake his own death and try to fly all the way out to London to try to woo Marion. I don't know what Joe was thinking, but then again, of course, Joe is a sociopath, so I mean, what do you expect? Yeah, we find out he's been spending months looking for Marion. He finds some of her artwork and decides to head to London, basically to look for her after he's been spending the months looking for her. Joe slightly begins to kind of stalk the new neighbor, Kate. You know, he claims he's not doing it, but he's walking the same location as her. And she ends up getting mugged by some thieves, you know. Perfect timing. He comes in and saves her, you know, from these muggers. And he also has to stay avoiding the cops. Now, at first, we thought he was trying to avoid the police because, you know, he faked his own death. But then again, he's in another country. Another place like that. So he's not in the U.S. So you may think that it probably wouldn't matter. But he's really trying his best to avoid the police. So I thought it was maybe because he was faking his own death. But we find out later on in the episode as to why he really needs to avoid the cops. Joe sees he has I don't know. Wait, hold on. Is London a country? Whatever. Anyway, so basically, we know that he's in another place. So you know, he's trying to keep a low profile. Joe sees he has to, keep a low profile after saving her, making sure she does not tell the cops that he helped her out. Malcolm forcefully ends up, and that's Kate's husband, I believe. It's Malcolm. I hope I'm not getting that wrong. If I am getting it wrong, please comment below. But Malcolm, the new person he meets while in London that he clearly does not like, basically forcefully invites him to this really high end party that he does not want to go to. I like one of the quotes in this episode that I liked that Joe says thought was kind of funny is he says, "Which one of these people will I hate the most?" I thought that was pretty funny. I like his inner dialogue that he has throughout the whole party, just roasting all these people there because they're just so snobby, rich, arrogant people, and he's just sitting up roasting all of them. And then at the party, of course, like I said, he meets a bunch of rich a-holes. These people are just, snobby. They're all just characters, basically, out of a comic book. They're so silly. Joe does meet one relatable person while at the party, and is this person who wrote a book that he likes, and I believe the character's name is Rise. It's Rhys. I can't really pronounce it. I was thinking that maybe this guy might be a possible new antagonist. The way how this episode is going, and from what we saw from the previews, there's some type of serial killer going around in London, so maybe it could be this guy, possibly. I don't know. I mean, it would be a little too on the nose, but He appears to be some good guy that wrote a book, and Joe really seems to be able to relate to him, which is kind of odd. That could be, sort of a foreshadowing that maybe this dude might be a killer like Joe, possibly. I don't know. I doubt they're doing any type of weird, cheesy storyline like this guy was his brother this whole time or some corny. I hope they don't do anything like that. I think that the writing on you is good enough where they wouldn't do no corny, cheesy plot twist that this guy Rise or how you pronounce his name is Joe's long lost brother. I pray they don't do anything like that. I doubt they will because the writing is pretty good on this show. So they may not do anything corny like that. But I don't know. I have a suspicion that he might possibly be the new killer. I don't know. Um, Let me see. So basically, while at the party, Joe is completely getting wasted. He just constantly getting drinks, just put in his face and stuff like that. And suddenly, the women at the party just start to question him as to why he's here and thinks that what are you doing here? They even start saying, "Oh, did you kill somebody?" and all those other crazy questions and stuff like that. Kate really finds something strange about Joe. She really finds something weird about him. She knows that something's off, but she can't put her finger on it. But then, when somebody asks about if some woman broke his heart, and then suddenly he starts thinking of Marion and thinks that, wondering if she really broke his heart. And we end up getting a flashback of some of the interactions he had with Marion in between season 3 and season 4. In the flashback, he finds Marion and she's scared of him, so she just looks at him and completely dips off. Of course, why would she? She heard a bunch of crazy stuff about him from his wife, Love, that he's a killer and all sorts of stuff like that. So, in a weird type of way, Love kind of won at the end, even though Joe was able to stop her at the end of season 3. She won after death by basically being able to find a way to drive Marion away without actually taking Marion out. So, uh, really successful in Love's part that she was able to pull that, be able to win in death. Finds Marion. Joe basically ends up, he's getting completely drunk at the party. He completely just spills all his feelings out on Malcolm, about, he's drunk and stuff like that. So he's just completely spilling his guts out to Malcolm about, his ex-wife Love completely destroying his chances to be with Marion, and then Malcolm is saying, "Oh, Marion is just some hoe, and she's someplace else, having sex with some other guy, and all sorts of stuff like that." And Joe definitely doesn't like that, but he's too drunk to really, really put hands on Malcolm. So Joe is drunk and he hears Malcolm, hearing things about him, saying that one woman says that Malcolm is a liar, and then one girl at the party is crying. We don't know what's going on, but Joe is completely out of it. Anyway, Joe ends up waking up the next day at his apartment, and he's completely out of it. But he ends up finding Malcolm dead on the kitchen, and he, which completely throws everything completely out of the window that he was trying to avoid. He finds a pinky finger missing. Joe ends up having to wrap up Malcolm. Malcolm is, wrapped up in some big rug, kind of like how Richard Gere did the dude and Unfaithful, and goes back to his old ways of having to, get rid of bodies and stuff like that. So now we see Joe is back to his old ways. This definitely reminds me so much of Dexter New Blood, the way how they started that whole new season out. But anyway, enough with Dexter. We have to believe that let me see. We have to believe it's so we definitely have to believe that there was a serial killer that was doing this and not Joe, because we know that Joe was wasted, but he thinks that maybe did he do it when he wasn't completely drunk off his behind or something like that. But we definitely know that it couldn't have been Joe doing this, even if Joe believes he might have done it. But we know that Joe didn't do this. And then we have another flashback where Joe is chasing after Marion, and she decides to run into a vacant building. Typical horror movie cliche. And I don't know why in the world would any woman would want to run away into some empty building away from him, but we know that's for dramatic effect. It's a TV show. I like how they basically sort of remind us that Joe is still a bad guy. This whole scene, this whole flashback really reminds you that Joe is not exactly a good dude. This guy is still a killer. So I like the way how they really orchestrate that. They don't try to make Joe out to be some sort of anti-hero. That this dude is actually scary. Marion finds out Joe killed his wife, Love, and she calls him a killer. And it reminds him sort of. It reminds me sort of similar to Beck back in an earlier series, when Beck finds out who Joe really is and she's completely horrified by him and he's heartbroken, Joe decides to just let her go. He doesn't take her out kind of like how he did Beck, so he says let her go, and we find out some guy is watching Joe from afar. I was questioning if that was maybe the new killer, but the guy is a killer, but he is a different type though. We see, but we'll get into that. I almost feel like this new season of You kind of reminds me of almost like a live action version of the board game Clue. We're trying to figure out who the killer is, type of thing. But I'm into those type of murder mystery type of shows anyway, so I kind of like to see where this show is going to go this season. Um, so Joe ends up taking Malcolm's body to some far-out location, and I wasn't expecting for him to play Cardi B in the background of this scene. That kind of caught me off guard, but yeah. So basically, Joe, he sort of goes into a butcher mode and starts taking off Malcolm's clothes to get rid of his body, and I wasn't expecting him to show his member. That kind of caught me off guard. I wasn't expecting that, but okay. Anyway, so Joe disposes of him, kind of like, how he did Jasper back in season two. He even pukes, he's completely sickened by what he's doing. I hope he was able to get rid of that evidence and that don't come back to haunt him. But then we have another flashback where we see Joe was planning on leaving London after Marion, kind of just turned him down. And a mystery guy pops up, named Elliot at the diner that Joe was at. And we find out that his ex father in law, Ray Quinn, basically sent an assassin after Joe. But the hitman is tired of his job. He wants to retire from doing any more killing. So Joe pretty much got lucky. And he finds out that, Joe's bank account was cleared the same day that Joe sort of quote unquote died. So that sort of gave a red flag that Joe definitely was not dead. So that was interesting. So instead of this guy Elliot deciding to take Joe up out of here, he decides to give Joe a whole new identity and decides to let him become this man named Jonathan. So he is forced to start all over again with a new identity, kind of like how he's been doing throughout the series. Then he tells Joe that basically Marion is, getting on a train to get out of here and she's a loose end. And he doesn't want to take Marion out, so he makes Joe do it. Joe runs into the guy he met at the party that he actually liked, Rise. I can't pronounce his name. I don't know how you pronounce it. So if anybody knows how to pronounce his name, please comment below. He runs into him at a bar, and Rise sees Joe has had a hellish life. They're talking over things, and he sort of psychoanalyzes Joe, and sees that Joe has had a hellish life and has had issues, and Joe could be looking for some redemption, as we can see during our talk, that Joe feels that maybe he could possibly find some redemption, but then again, Joe feels that after everything he's done, he doesn't believe it, but I feel that's what they might be going for, possibly, but yeah, so maybe after his talk with this man, he might be looking for some redemption. I think Rise might be a possible killer, to be honest with you, but Anyway, so instead of Joe killing Marion, he ends up taking his necklace and lets her go on a train to going about her life, and he ends up taking a picture of the chain, the necklace, and sends it to Elliot to make it seem like she's quote unquote dead, even though I think that was just too easily wrapped up. I know it can be that easy to, Joe could have already had that chain, but that's TV for you. It seemed a little too easily wrapped up, but yeah. So anyway, Kate also forcefully invites Joe to a dinner party by Phoebe, and it seemed like there might be a future relationship between his neighbor Kate, after, Malcolm is, quote unquote, dead, basically. But she definitely seems like she doesn't trust Joe, so it might be a rivalry going on there. She's always going to be looking after him, sort of type of thing going on. She made it seem like she don't trust him. Or maybe she's the one that possibly killed Malcolm. I'm not really sure. I think that she probably did kill Malcolm. It's either her or this Rise guy, or whatever his name is, the book writer that Joe likes. Joe gets a text from the person who actually killed Malcolm, and we see that now he's going to be stalking Joe. So Joe is now, he tried to frame Joe for the death of Malcolm. So we see how that ended. That was pretty insane. And now we see that Malcolm is gonna, no, Joe is gonna be playing a cat and mouse game with this new unknown killer guy. So I thought this was a great episode, a great way to start the show, the new season. Uh, Phenomenal episode. I'm going to binge watch the next few episodes. It was great. I don't really know much else I can say. Like I said, I have my predictions. I think the killer is either this Rise guy or Kate. But I like this new season. I like it's in London, new location, and I like to see Joe back to his normal self. If you like this video, like, comment, subscribe, share the video, and I will be doing a review of the rest of this season of You and season 4. And thank you for watching my video.